still remember the first time I told them. I was sitting at the dinner table, fresh out of grad school, clutching my battered notebook filled with sketches, diagrams, and crazy ideas about bringing life back into the concrete jungle. My voice wavered as I shared my dream, urban ecological restoration, turning abandoned lots, cracked sidewalks, empty rooftops into lush, breathing ecosystems. My family stared at me like I'd just declared I wanted to become a clown, or worse, a fool. "You're joking, right?" my brother scoffed, shoveling food into his mouth. "You really think plants are gonna fix this mess? You're wasting your time on that hippie nonsense. That's not a real career." My mother shook her head, eyes narrowing. "You're smart, sweetie. Why throw your life away chasing some fantasy? No one's gonna pay you to plant weeds in derelict buildings. That's just embarrassing." And my father. He looked at me with that familiar mix of disappointment and skepticism, like I'd betrayed everything they stood for. "You're better than that. You should be aiming for something stable. Law, medicine, business. Not this pipe dream about weeds and trees. You're making a fool of yourself." That day, I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Their words echoed in my head long after the plates were cleared. I knew I was chasing something important, something that mattered to me. But their mockery, their relentless dismissal, made me question myself. Maybe I was a fool. Maybe I was doomed to fail. But I couldn't let that stop me. So I left, driven by a fierce need to prove them wrong. I started small, guerrilla gardening in abandoned lots where no one dared to go. I snuck in at night, planting native species, nurturing tiny patches of green amidst the decay. It was hard, exhausting, lonely work that drew ridicule from even strangers who saw my projects as pointless. Hippie tactics, they called it. Urban weeds, waste of time. But I persisted, knowing somewhere deep that this was more than just plants. It was a movement, a future I believed in. Years passed. I faced setbacks, bureaucratic roadblocks, skepticism from the scientific community, personal doubts. But I kept going. My work gained quiet recognition among activists and environmentalists. Slowly, the abandoned spaces transformed. What was once concrete scars became vibrant, thriving ecosystems. Birds returned, bees buzzed, and trees grew tall where concrete once reigned. I documented everything, sharing my success stories online, winning small awards, gaining followers who believed in my vision. Then came the breakthrough. My project, once dismissed as pseudoscience, caught the attention of major environmental organizations. Funding poured in. I was invited to speak at conferences, my methods studied and adopted worldwide. I became a leading voice in urban ecological restoration, pioneering new techniques that made city landscapes resilient to climate change. I was invited to cities across the globe, helping them turn blighted neighborhoods into green havens. And all the while, I thought about that dinner table, about their sneers and their judgments, about how they had written me off as a foolish dreamer. One day, I decided it was time to go home. Not because I needed their approval. By then, I had long since found my worth. But because I wanted to show them, in person, what I'd become. To confront their doubts and show them what their mockery had nearly silenced. The house looked smaller than I remembered, but I felt bigger inside. I stepped inside, greeted by the same old walls that once echoed with my doubts. But this time, I carried something different, proof. As I walked through the front yard, I saw the barren patch that had been my childhood playground. I knelt, pulled out my phone, and clicked the first picture, a small, lush green space I had helped restore just outside the house, filled with native shrubs and wildflowers. I smiled, then went inside. My family was gathered in the living room, eyes glued to the television. I could sense the skepticism in their faces, the disbelief lingering like a stubborn cloud. Then a news report came on about the city's major urban ecological projects, showcasing abandoned lots turned into thriving parks, rain gardens, and urban farms. My face flashed on the screen, giving a TED Talk that I had been invited to deliver after my work caught fire around the world. My mother's eyes widened, her mouth parted in shock. My father looked at the screen, then at me, eyes narrowing as if trying to reconcile the person they once mocked with the person standing before them now. I stepped forward, voice steady. "Remember that night I told you I was going to do this? You laughed. You told me I was wasting my life. You said I'd fail, that I'd be an embarrassment. Well, look at what we've built. We've proved that even in the most broken places, life finds a way, and I did it, despite your doubts, despite your ridicule." They stared, silent. Then I turned and led them outside. The yard had transformed. The weeds I'd planted had grown into a vibrant mosaic of green. Bees hovered over a patch of wildflowers I'd seeded. A small tree I'd nurtured stood tall, its leaves whispering in the breeze. I watched their faces change from skepticism to awe, from disbelief to a silent understanding of what persistence and belief can achieve. My mother finally spoke, voice trembling. I didn't realize it would be like this." My father looked away, then back at the lush scene. "We were wrong," he admitted quietly. And I felt something inside shift, something I'd carried with me all those years. That relentless hope, that stubborn faith that my dream was worth fighting for, had become reality. That moment, standing there amidst the green, I realized something profound. The greatest failure is not pursuing what calls to your soul. The greatest victory is transforming skepticism into recognition, turning ridicule into respect. I turned to my family, tears in my eyes, and said, "This is just the beginning." Because I knew now, beyond any doubt, that what I had started was bigger than me. It was a movement rooted in resilience, in hope, in the undeniable truth that even the most broken places can bloom again. And maybe, just maybe, they'd learn something from watching a girl who refused to give up on her dreams, no matter how ridiculous they seemed. Because in the end, that's what true success looks like. Not just changing landscapes,